The first toy broke at exactly 4:17 in the afternoon. It was not an accident. No matter how many times my mother later tried to polish it into one, my sister Madison lifted my son's new wooden train engine between two manicured fingers, studied the brass bell on the front, and let it fall straight onto the stone floor of my parents' lake cabin. The bell snapped off, rolled under the table, and stopped beside my uncle's shoe. Nobody moved. Owen had turned 6 that morning. My father had given him that train with a handwritten note that said, "For the boy who notices small details." Owen noticed everything. The date on coins, the sound of rain on different roofs, the exact moment adults changed voices because they were lying. That afternoon, he noticed his family laughing at him. Madison smiled as if she had performed a magic trick. She wore a cream cashmere sweater she could not afford, gold bracelets that clinked every time she moved, and the lazy confidence of someone who had been rescued from consequences her entire life. "Honestly, Claire," she said, "you baby him too much. It is a toy. If he cannot handle a broken toy, the world is going to eat him alive." Then she reached for the next gift. The cabin smelled of grilled corn, lake water, and the lemon oil my mother rubbed into the dining table every Saturday, as if a shiny surface could prove a family was healthy. Outside, Lake Winnipesaukee flashed orange under the late summer sun. Inside, every adult in the room had a chance to become decent. Most chose comfort. Madison opened Owen's watercolor pencils and snapped 3 of them in half. My Uncle Carl laughed first. My cousin Brittany covered her mouth, pretending embarrassment while still watching. My mother Elaine stood by the kitchen island, twisting a dish towel and wearing her familiar panic smile, the one that begged me to swallow the injury so everyone else could keep eating. Owen did not cry loudly. He folded inward, shoulders up, chin down, hands hidden beneath the table. He was not looking for comfort. He was trying to become invisible. I knew that shape. I had lived inside that shape for 36 years. I learned it at family dinners, in church parking lots, in kitchens where Madison broke things and I apologized for the noise. I knew the cold little rule behind it. The easiest child is the child nobody has to defend. Then Madison picked up the painting. Owen had spent 3 days painting the lake for my father. The dock leaned too far left, the trees looked like green fireworks, and the sky was too blue for New Hampshire in September. But every brushstroke had been careful. It was a 6-year-old's heart on paper. Madison lifted her wineglass. "Do not," I said. My voice surprised me. It was not loud. It was flat, controlled, the voice I used in audit rooms when a vendor had billed the same invoice twice and hoped nobody would compare dates. Madison smiled wider and poured the Pinot Noir over the painting. Red spread through the blue sky, down the dock, into the little orange boat. The paper buckled. The colors bled. Madison set the empty glass in the middle of the ruined lake and looked around for approval. She got it. Carl slapped his knee. "That is a $50 lesson right there, kid. Toughen up." The laughter was sharp enough to cut wood. My mother rushed forward with napkins, but not toward Owen. She slid the painting aside and wiped the table underneath it. "The wood will stain," she whispered. That was when the old family died. Not when Madison broke the train, not when she snapped the pencils, not even when she destroyed the painting. It died when my mother chose the table over the child. I stood. My chair scraped the floor and cut the laughter in half. I walked around the table and placed myself between Madison and Owen. "You enjoyed that," I said. Madison rolled her eyes. "Stop acting like I committed a federal crime." My father's fork hit his plate. The room heard it. My father, Richard Whitaker, had been quiet my whole life, but quiet was never the same as weak. He could repair an engine by sound, balance accounts to the penny, and endure my mother's performances without raising his voice. For years, I mistook that endurance for peace. I was wrong. His hand flattened on the table. His left thumb rubbed the wedding ring he had worn since 1989. His jaw moved once, like he was grinding through the last piece of a life he no longer meant to keep. Then he stood. Elaine froze with the stained napkins in her hand. Richard, she said softly, warningly. He did not look at her. He looked at Owen. My son sat in a bent paper birthday crown, wine streaking one sleeve, broken gifts beside his shoes. Boy, my father said, look at me. Owen looked. You did nothing wrong. 4 words entered the room like oxygen after a fire. Owen's face twisted with confusion, as if he had prepared himself for abandonment and could not understand rescue arriving late. Madison scoffed. Dad, do not make this weird. My father turned to her, not with rage, with inventory. You broke his gifts. They were cheap. You destroyed his painting. It was paper. You humiliated him in front of his family. Oh, please. My mother stepped between them, hands raised. Everybody breathe. Madison drank too much. Claire is tired. Owen is sensitive. We can buy him another train. My father looked at her so steadily she stepped back. You wiped the table, he said. Elaine blinked. What? You watched your daughter pour wine over your grandson's painting, and you wiped the table. The refrigerator hummed behind us. Outside, a boat motor faded across the lake. Inside, nobody laughed. Do not do this, Elaine whispered. I have done this for 37 years, he said. I have watched Claire apologize for injuries Madison caused. I have watched you call cruelty exhaustion, theft borrowing, lies stress, and abuse family tension. I have watched you make every decent person smaller so Madison could stay large. Madison's face changed. Anger, she understood. Anger gave her something to attack. My father's voice held no anger, it held math. I am done keeping your peace, he said. He reached for his wedding ring. It did not come off easily. He twisted it once, then again. His knuckle reddened. Elaine whispered his name like a prayer that no longer had a destination. He walked to the sink, pumped dish soap onto his finger, and worked the ring free. Then he returned to the table, held the ring over Owen's ruined painting, and dropped it into the wine. It landed with a wet sound. This marriage has cost enough, he said. Madison laughed too high. You are divorcing Mom because I broke a toy train? No, my father said. The train was the receipt. He walked to the coat closet beside the fireplace. From the top shelf, behind old board games and a cracked tackle box, he pulled down a thick red binder with a black elastic strap. He set it on the table. The sound was dull and final. My mother went pale. I knew paperwork. I had spent 14 years as a forensic billing auditor, finding duplicate invoices, fake vendors, forged approvals, and money trails people thought emotion could bury. I knew the weight of a binder assembled over time. That binder had weight. My father opened it. The first page was a spreadsheet. Not a confession, not a letter. A spreadsheet. Date. Payee. Amount. Account. Explanation given. Actual use. My father had color-coded the columns and written notes in the margins with the steady hand of a man who had stopped trusting words. March 12, 2019, $8,400 from the Whitaker family maintenance account, listed as roof repair, paid to Harbor Ridge Auto Group. Madison's Mercedes. June 3, 2019, $2,950 listed as dock permits, paid to a cosmetic clinic in Boston. Madison's fillers. Then, $14,200 listed as furnace replacement, paid to a criminal defense attorney in Concord. Then, $6,700 listed as property tax escrow, paid to a private investigator. Then, $22,500 withdrawn from my father's rollover IRA through a signature authorization that looked like his, except the R looped the wrong way. My mother began talking because silence is where guilty people hear truth too clearly. Richard, those were private matters. You promised we would handle them as a family. No, he said. You said that. Then you handled them with my retirement money. Madison pushed away from the table. This is insane. You kept a binder? My father turned a page. On August 29th, 2021, at 11:42 p.m., you drove a black 2020 Mercedes GLE through the intersection of Elm Street and Route 109 in Wolfboro. You hit 19-year-old Abigail Porter while she crossed with a signal. You left the scene. The cabin vanished into silence. Madison's face flattened. That was never proven. My father slid the next page across the table. Police report, insurance claim, emergency room bill, photos of the broken passenger side headlight, a repair invoice dated 2 days after the crash, a cashier's check for $17,850. Elaine made a sound like paper tearing. Richard, stop! There are children here! There was a child in the crosswalk, he said. Abigail survived, but not cleanly. Fractured pelvis, nerve damage, lost track scholarship. Madison got a new headlight, a lawyer, and a mother willing to mortgage our future to protect the fantasy that her golden child was unlucky instead of dangerous. Then my father turned another page. This section is for forged authorizations. There were 6 forms from 3 financial institutions. 2 carried my father's signature. 1 carried mine. I had never seen it before. It authorized Elaine Whitaker to liquidate Owen's custodial education account. Balance: $18,312. Withdrawal date: January 4, 2024, 9:06 a.m. Reason listed: medical hardship. Destination account: Madison Whitaker. I felt nothing at first. No scream, no tears, just calculation. Unauthorized withdrawal, forged signature, interstate bank transfer, financial fraud, identity theft, tax exposure. The room had become evidence. Elaine reached toward me. Claire, sweetheart, I was going to tell you. I looked at her hand until she withdrew it. No, you were not. Madison grabbed her purse. I am not staying for this psycho audit. My father did not raise his voice. Sit down. You do not get to order me around. No, he said, but the Carroll County Sheriff's Department might. Uncle Carl stood. Richard, family does not call cops on family. My father looked at him. Family does not steal from children. Carl sat down. My father removed a sealed envelope from the binder's back pocket. The return address belonged to a law firm in Concord. Digital copies are already with my attorney, he said. This is the courtesy copy. Madison's eyes flicked to the door. The golden child was calculating escape. I did not confront Madison that night. People imagine exposure as a thunderclap, one dramatic moment where truth enters the room and liars collapse. Real exposure is slower. It is timestamps, chain of custody, certified mail, bank holds, duplicate drives, and the disciplined refusal to let a guilty person turn your anger into their defense. So, I took Owen home. My father came with us. He packed 1 duffel bag, his medication, the red binder, and the wooden train with the broken bell. Elaine cried on the porch, not because she was sorry, but because the audience was leaving before she could finish directing the scene. Madison shouted from the driveway, "You will all regret this!" My father looked over the roof of my Subaru. Probably not as much as you. Then we drove away. At 10:38 p.m., Elaine sent the first text. Claire, do not let your father do something cruel. At 10:41, Madison is fragile. You know how she gets. At 10:44, Owen will forget the toys. Adults need to be adults. I screenshot every message. Then I created an encrypted folder called Lake Cabin Incident and added subfolders: photos, texts, financial, witnesses, child impact, chain of custody. Old habits save lives. The next morning, I photographed every broken gift with a ruler beside each piece. I scanned the ruined painting. I recorded Owen explaining what happened in his own words, gently and without leading questions. I emailed the video to myself, my attorney, and my father with the subject line, Preserve Contemporaneous Statement. At 8:30, I called First Granite Bank. By 9:12, Owen's account was flagged. By 9:47, I requested signature verification and transaction origin logs. By 10:26, a fraud investigator in Manchester asked whether I had authorized Elaine Whitaker to withdraw the funds. No, I said. Do you know the receiving party? Yes, my sister. He paused. Keyboard clicks filled the line. We will need a signed affidavit. I can have it notarized by noon. For 9 days, I became exactly what my family mocked me for being: precise, organized, and boring. I built timelines. I requested bank statements. I pulled property records and tax transcripts. In my mother's email folder labeled cabin repairs, I found 46 messages to Madison dressed in denial and perfume. Do not text about Abby. Your father cannot know the exact amount. Use the card ending in 4419 for the attorney. Claire is too busy to check Owen's account. That one stayed with me. They had not stolen from my son because they were desperate. They stole from him because they had counted on my usefulness and exhaustion. They believed the load-bearing wall would never inspect its own cracks. They were wrong. On the 10th day, Elaine called. My father sat across from me at my kitchen table. The room smelled of coffee, printer toner, and Owen's cinnamon oatmeal. Claire, she said, honey-voiced, we need to meet like civilized people. Sunday, Lakeside Grill, noon. No lawyers, no police, no drama. No lawyers meant danger. No police meant guilt. No drama meant obedience. I looked at my father. He nodded. Fine, I said. Bring whatever paperwork you think you need, she added. Madison wants to apologize. That was the trap. Madison did not apologize unless there was an audience. Lakeside Grill was not a restaurant to my mother. It was a stage where bankers, church donors, real estate brokers, and retired judges pretended not to hear while hearing everything. She wanted public pressure. I wanted public record. Lakeside Grill smelled like butter, floor wax, and expensive forgiveness. My mother had chosen the center table, not near the windows, where conversation could dissolve into the lake view, not near the kitchen, where noise might cover the performance. Center table. Full visibility, classic Elaine. She wore navy linen, pearls, and the wounded expression of a woman who had rehearsed in a mirror. Madison sat beside her in sunglasses, indoors. Uncle Carl was there too, which I expected. Pastor Green from my mother's church sat beside him, which I also expected. What I did not expect was Abigail Porter. She sat at the far end with a cane hooked over her chair. She was 23 now, brown hair tied low, body held carefully to protect her left hip. She looked from Madison to me to my father, and I knew she had not been told the truth about this meeting. Elaine rushed to explain. Abby wanted closure. Abby said nothing. That said enough. My father and I sat. I placed a manila envelope on the table. Not the red binder. The original was already with my attorney. This envelope was thinner, cleaner, and more dangerous. Elaine smiled. This is good. This is what families do. We sit together. No, my father said. Families tell the truth. A waiter poured water. Ice clicked against glass. Pastor Green folded his hands as if preparing to bless a meal none of us had ordered. Madison removed her sunglasses. Her eyes were red, but anger makes a different redness than remorse. Fine, she said. I am sorry Owen got upset. My father closed his eyes. I opened the envelope. Elaine leaned forward. Before we get into documents, Madison has been under tremendous pressure. The accident, the business, Abby's friends spreading rumors, your father abandoning me without warning. Do not use me, Abby said. The table stopped. Elaine rearranged her face. Sweetheart, I only meant... No. You called me yesterday and said Madison would apologize and explain restitution. You did not say your pastor would be here. You did not say this was about making your family look peaceful. Madison snapped. Oh, come on. You got paid. There it was. Abby's hand tightened on the table. I got medical bills covered after your mother threatened my parents with private investigators. Pastor Green turned to Elaine. Is that true? Elaine whispered, "It was complicated." I slid the first document forward. It is not complicated. This is the police report from August 29th, 2021. This is the repair invoice for Madison's vehicle dated August 31st. This is the cashier's check used to pay the body shop. This is Elaine's email instructing Madison not to text about Abby. And this is the withdrawal from Richard's retirement account used to pay the attorney who negotiated the private settlement. Madison laughed once. "You cannot bring random papers to lunch and act like court." "No," I said, "but I can bring copies after submitting originals to the proper offices." Her laugh ended. Elaine stared at me. "What did you do?" At 9:03 Friday morning, First Granite Bank opened a fraud review into the unauthorized withdrawal from Owen's custodial account. At 10:18, my attorney filed a preservation letter regarding forged signatures on Richard's retirement forms. At 11:42, the Carroll County Sheriff's Office confirmed receipt of supplemental evidence on the hit and run. At 2:15, the IRS whistleblower portal received documentation of miscategorized withdrawals reported as cabin expenses. Carl muttered, "Jesus." Madison stood. "You are bluffing." I slid my phone across the table. The screen showed the sheriff's confirmation receipt and case number. Madison sat down. Finally, the dining room had noticed. People of a certain class never turn their chairs around. They lower their voices, pause with forks halfway to their mouths, and pretend not to hear while hearing everything. Elaine knew that better than anyone. Her reputation was a lace curtain, pretty, thin, and useless once the room caught fire. She touched Pastor Green's sleeve. "Claire has always been dramatic about paperwork." That was her oldest mistake. She thought accuracy was a personality flaw. I placed 3 packets on the table, red for financial fraud, blue for the hit and run, yellow for Owen. "Madison destroyed a child's birthday gifts because she knew this family would excuse it," I said. "But the gifts are not the issue. They are the pattern. Madison harms, Elaine conceals, Richard pays, Claire absorbs, and everyone calls the silence peace." My father stared at his hands, not with shame, but recognition. I opened the yellow packet. This is the notarized affidavit confirming I did not authorize liquidation of Owen's education account. This is the transaction record showing the request came from an IP address registered to Elaine's home router in Laconia. This is the receiving account, Madison's account. This is the Venmo history showing $4,800 of Owen's money went to a Miami birthday trip. Madison whispered, "Mom said that account was family money." Elaine snapped, "Do not start." Everyone heard it. I opened the red packet. These are withdrawals from the cabin maintenance account. Elaine reported them as repairs and operational expenses to reduce taxable distribution on the family partnership. Actual payees include attorneys, luxury retail, Madison's car loan, cosmetic services, and a political fundraiser Madison attended because she thought it would get her consulting work. My father said, "Elaine, you told me the dock needed structural reinforcement." I slid over a photograph from a licensed inspector. No structural work was performed. The invoice was fabricated using the name of a contractor whose LLC dissolved in 2017. Elaine looked at the page like it had insulted her. Madison stood so fast her water glass tipped. Ice scattered across the tablecloth. "Claire has always hated me. She wants me ruined because Dad loves me more." My father spoke softly. "I loved you enough to mistake rescue for parenting." That landed harder than accusation. Madison's face cracked. Beneath the cashmere, extensions, and curated helplessness, I saw the terrified child my mother had built and weaponized. But seeing the wound did not erase the weapon. Abby opened the blue packet herself. Her hands were steady. "This is my surgery schedule," she said. "This is the letter rescinding my scholarship. This is the physical therapy total my parents refinanced their house to cover before your mother offered settlement and called it generosity. I was 19. You left me in the road." Madison stared at the page. For once, no performance came. Then, two men entered the dining room. One wore a gray suit with a county badge clipped to his belt. The other wore a navy windbreaker marked IRSCI. Elaine made a small sound. The man in the gray suit approached. "Madison Whitaker?" Madison looked at me. I did not look away. "Detective Aaron Mills, Carroll County Sheriff's Office. We need to speak with you regarding new evidence in a 2021 motor vehicle incident and related financial matters." The IRS agent turned to Elaine. "Elaine Whitaker, I am Special Agent Robert Keene. We have questions regarding partnership filings and suspected false deductions." There was no table left to wipe, no joke left to soften, no child left to sacrifice so adults could keep eating. Only documents, only witnesses, only consequence. Nobody was arrested in the dining room that day. That disappointed Uncle Carl, I think, because men like Carl understand accountability only when it arrives with handcuffs and a story they can retell. Real accountability came later by mail: certified envelopes, frozen accounts, interview requests, subpoenas that made my mother's hands shake when she signed for them on a Tuesday morning. Paper has quiet cruelty. By October 14, Madison's accounts were restricted pending fraud review. By October 22nd, First Granite Bank issued a provisional credit to Owen's custodial account and referred the forged authorization to legal. By November 3rd, my father filed for divorce in Belknap County and requested a forensic accounting of all marital assets dating back 7 years. Elaine called it betrayal. My father called it math. Madison lost the Mercedes first. It was repossessed outside a nail salon in Portsmouth while she was inside arguing about a chipped gel manicure. Someone filmed her rushing out in foam pedicure slippers, screaming that her father would fix it. He did not. Next came the cabin. My father petitioned to force sale of the lake property to recover retirement funds and repay diverted money. Elaine fought it because the cabin was her stage, proof that the Whitakers were respectable people who hosted Labor Day cookouts and donated to silent auctions. Auditors do not value a stage by its lighting. They value it by liens. The cabin went under contract in December. Owen never asked to visit again. That mattered more than the money. For weeks after the birthday party, he had nightmares about broken things. He tucked toys under his bed before sleeping. He stopped painting for 23 days. Then one Saturday, my father arrived with a small toolbox, a block of maple, and the broken train bell sealed in a plastic bag. "Want to fix something?" he asked. Owen looked at me first. "You can say no," I said. He asked, "Can we make it stronger?" My father swallowed. "Yes." They spent 3 hours at my kitchen table. The room smelled of sawdust, glue, and toast. My father showed him how to drill a pilot hole, how to hold a clamp, how to repair a thing without pretending it had never broken. When the bell rang again, Owen smiled with his whole face. That was the inheritance. Meanwhile, Madison tried every door that once opened for her. She called my father 62 times in 1 week. She sent texts saying she was scared, sick, abandoned, misunderstood. Then one saying she hoped he died alone. My father printed them all and gave them to his attorney. The red binder gained a second volume. Elaine moved into a furnished apartment near Concord after the court granted my father temporary exclusive use of the marital home due to financial misconduct allegations. She told friends she had been discarded by an angry old man. Some believed her for 4 days. Then Pastor Green quietly resigned from the church finance committee, and the story changed shape without my help. Respectability is a credit line. Hers was declined. In February, Madison accepted a plea agreement for leaving the scene of an accident, filing a false insurance statement, and participating in unauthorized financial transfers. The tax issues remained under civil and possible criminal review, which meant Elaine learned new words: exposure, restitution, amended return, penalty assessment, cooperation agreement. She hated every one. At the restitution hearing, Abigail Porter spoke for 7 minutes. She did not cry. She described the sound of impact, the taste of blood, the way headlights looked from pavement, and the phone call where a private investigator suggested her parents consider the stress of litigation before making trouble for a good family. Madison looked down the entire time. When the judge asked if she had anything to say, Madison stood in a navy dress and read from a folded paper. She said she had been immature, afraid, poorly advised. She said she took full responsibility, then spent the next sentence explaining anxiety, pressure, and the unfairness of being judged by her worst moment. The judge listened. Then he said, "Responsibility is not a costume you put on for sentencing." Madison's mouth opened slightly. The sentence was not dramatic enough for television, but it was real enough to ruin the fantasy. Suspended jail time with strict conditions, 5 years probation, mandatory restitution, community service, license suspension, continued cooperation with financial investigations, and a warning that any violation would activate incarceration. Elaine gripped the bench until her knuckles went white. My father did not smile. Neither did I. 6 months after the birthday party, Owen painted again. Not the lake, not the cabin, not the dock where adults had laughed while his heart broke. He painted a train, blue this time, with a brass bell on the front and tracks running through mountains that looked like green triangles. In the corner, he painted 3 people, himself, me, and my father. Everyone stood upright. He gave it to my father on a Sunday afternoon in April. We were in my father's new apartment in Concord, above a bakery that made the hallway smell like yeast and sugar. The apartment had mismatched furniture, a humming radiator, and 4 framed photographs. My graduation, Owen holding a pumpkin at age 3, my father's fishing boat, and 1 empty frame. Owen handed him the painting. "For your wall," he said. My father took it like a legal document and a holy object at the same time. "I know where it goes," he said. He put it in the empty frame. Later, while Owen built a tower from sugar packets, my father stood beside me at the sink. "I should have stopped it sooner," he said. "Yes," I said. He nodded. He did not argue. That was one way I knew he had changed. I thought keeping the family together was my job. It was never supposed to cost the children. "No," his voice broke. "No, it was not." Some apologies ask you to erase the past. Others stand beside the damage without demanding anything. My father was learning the second kind. Healing is not a refund. It is a ledger rebuilt line by line. Elaine sent the last letter in June. It arrived in a cream envelope because my mother would face federal penalties, divorce court, public disgrace, and the collapse of her favorite child before using ordinary printer paper for